This is the hardest material to forge in the Forged in Fire competition, Rocket Spring Steel. This steel is extremely hard. Its processing difficulty is off the charts. It can truly be called a devilish steel. To test the contestants' forging skills, the program team specially sourced a pile of Rocket Spring Steel. They required the contestants to forge a distinctive short blade, using the Sanmei 3-ply forging technique within 3 hours. As soon as the host gave the order, the contestants sprang into action one after another. However, faced with such solid spring steel, it was impossible to even move it with just one person's strength. To obtain the steel as quickly as possible, the contestants had no choice but to team up in pairs. Clay and Eland formed a team. After placing the spring steel on an open ground, Clay picked up the blowtorch first. The two cooperated with each other. After a shower of sparks, he struck hard with a hammer, and the two successfully obtained the desired steel material. They each put their steel pieces into the furnace for further heating. At the same time, the progress of the team of Josh and Rob was obviously lagging behind. They also used a blowtorch and a power hammer, but since they hadn't added acetylene in the early stage, and only used the blowtorch to continuously flame the spring steel, it took them a full half an hour just to cut the material. Watching Clay nearby take out the red-hot steel and place it on the stamping machine to start stamping the steel billet from top to bottom, the two began to feel anxious and hurried to catch up with the progress for the next step. While Josh and Rob were still rushing to speed up, Clay beside them already had a complete knife forging plan. He decided to make a competition chopper. After the red-hot steel billet came out of the furnace, Clay first used the stamping machine to repeatedly stamp and fuse the billet into a square shape. Immediately after, he wrapped 2 pieces of mild steel around the billet and started the Sanmei forging process. Unlike Clay, who pursued speed excessively, Eland chose to work slowly and carefully. The smooth material collection had saved him a lot of time, and at this moment, he only wanted to get a high-quality knife blank. But perhaps due to being too meticulous, an accident occurred unexpectedly. The knife blank was pulled too long. Seeing this scene, Eland had to find a way to remedy it. When Rob was cutting the steel earlier, he had planned to forge a recurved cleaver suitable for chopping. But considering that he had wasted a lot of time on material collection, he decided to speed up the remaining steps. A few minutes later, Rob quickly completed the entire steel billet stamping process. After the billet was fused, Rob began to carry out the Sanmei cladding process on the billet. Compared with Rob, Josh did not have such speed. Not only did the material collection take too long, but forging and fusing the steel billet also consumed a lot of time. He originally wanted to design a cool camping knife, but it would be by no means easy to forge such a knife according to the plan. Within the remaining time, after obtaining the fused and clad Sanmei steel billet, he began to use the stamping machine to lengthen the billet. On the other side, Eland had already started forging the knife shape. He planned to make a jungle short blade. Although he showed off some good forging skills, he did not temper the steel in time during the process. In this way, the final forged knife was likely to have cracks. But watching the countdown approaching, Eland had to proceed to the next step. As time ticked away, Clay also planned to wrap things up. After heat treating the knife blank, he prepared to complete the final quenching. Perhaps because he was the first to finish, he was a bit excited. In the next moment, Clay actually dropped the entire knife into the quenching bucket. Fortunately, the blade did not bend. Just as he was about to call it a day, an unexpected situation arose. He found that there was an obvious Sanmei crack on the blade. The other 3 contestants also successively completed quenching. What kind of works will the contestants bring? Who will be the first to regretfully be eliminated? Let's wait and see. This is the most surprising flop moment in Forged in Fire. With one strike, the blade fell apart completely. The top-tier championship final suddenly turned into a farce. To boost the show's appeal, the host specially invited 3 champion contestants to take part in a real-life ultimate challenge. They were required to stack 50 layers of Damascus steel within 5 hours and forge a unique short blade. In addition to the blade, the rounded pommel of the handle and the guard, all being made of stacked Damascus steel, the steel billets for the 3 components also had to be forged separately. As the countdown officially began, the 3 contestants got to work one after another. After receiving the steel, Jamie didn't start forging in a hurry. Instead, he first conducted a careful inspection of the steel. His plan was to stack 20 layers first, then overlap and stack the resulting new steel billets, thereby obtaining 60 layers of Damascus steel. After performing initial heat treatment on the steel billet, Jamie directly used a power hammer to start fusing the steel billet. During continuous hammering at a 45-degree angle, the fused steel billet actually started to delaminate. This left Jamie somewhat shocked. However, to avoid disrupting the subsequent process, Jamie didn't hesitate at all. He immediately fired up the angle grinder, and amid flying sparks, he easily removed the delaminate layers. On the other side, Joshua also decided to first stack 20 initial layers, then carry out multi-layer fusion and stacking. But what made him more experimental than Jamie was his decision to show off a triple twisted steel cladding technique. Considering the tight schedule, Joshua decided to make the steel billets needed for all 3 components at the same time. After finishing the heating of the steel billets, Joshua first used a press to forge weld the billets vertically, then optimized them through horizontal forge welding, and afterwards used a power hammer for continuous hammering and fusion. Unlike the previous 2 contestants, the experienced Mike appeared much more cautious. He didn't start forging first. Instead, through precise calculations, calculations and a design sketch, he estimated the time required for each forging step. Faced with a tight schedule, he finally decided to forge the 3 steel billets simultaneously. After heating the 3 pieces of Damascus steel, he used a combination of a press and a power hammer for forge welding, and even took the time to make timely adjustments with a hand hammer at critical moments. His skillful operation speed and well-judged forging force soon got him to the second stacking stage. Meanwhile, Joshua also started to elongate the steel billet. Once the billet took shape, he resolutely used the press to cut it. Right after that came one of the most spectacular skill-displaying moments of the competition, twisting the Damascus steel. Under Joshua's manipulation, beautiful spiral patterns began to appear on the red-hot steel billet. He still needed to carry out a second stacking process to get the ideal steel billet. As time ticked away minute by minute, Jamie's blade blank was also basically formed. In order to win the judges' praise, he even specially ground double-sided trapezoidal reverse patterns on the blade blank. As for Mike beside him, he had not yet finished making his blade blank. Fortunately, he had completed the handle pommel and guard in advance. Next, he only needed to grind and finish the blade. The most anxious one at the moment was Joshua, who had just obtained his steel billet. Although his earlier move of twisting the Damascus steel was extremely impressive, his progress was now clearly lagging behind. Watching the countdown on the wall and seeing Mike and Jamie successively finish quenching their blades nearby, he had no choice but to speed up. With only 1 hour left, Mike started assembling the entire blade. He first used a drill to make a hole in the guard, then used a file to adjust the details, and afterwards began making the handle. The next moment, the blade blank Joshua had long been looking forward to finally came out of the forge. But without taking time to check the quality of the blade blank, he directly completed the quenching process. Although he had not yet finished the guard and handle pommel, Joshua was clearly very confident in his blade. He couldn't help but start cheering on the competition floor. In sharp contrast to Joshua was Jamie, who had just made a mistake. The imitation ivory handle he had spent half an hour refining actually broke accidentally. Helplessly, he had to make a new handle from scratch. With only 10 minutes left in the competition, Mike suddenly had a new idea. He planned to carefully make a stacked handle. As the countdown was about to end, whether the 3 contestants could successfully finish their work within the specified time. Let's wait and see. This is the wildest blacksmithing technique in Forged in Fire, the magical water forging method. With just a few hammer strikes, scrap iron residues turn directly into a premium blank, and the only contestant bold enough to show off such skills in a timed challenge is none other than the top-tier blacksmith known as the prodigy with unmatched craftsmanship, Ilya the Magical Blacksmith. To surprise the competition, Ilya collected a large amount of scrap iron and steel. His goal this time is to use the scrap iron before him to perfectly replicate the Nichiren sword from Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba. In the classic anime Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the dual-handled Nichiren sword wielded crosswise, possesses incredible power, capable of slicing through whirlwinds and chaos without a trace. As a passionate top-tier blacksmith, Ilya naturally couldn't miss this opportunity. He gathered all the collected scrap iron and put it into the forge for heating in one go. The red-hot steel billet is tightly bonded together through fold forging and hammering, and each strike effectively removes impurities from the billet. After just a few hammer blows, sparks and debris fly from the red-hot steel. Such wild and straightforward forging is hard to pull off without real skill, and the reason Ilya dares to make such a bold attempt is his proficient water forging technique. After repeated hammering and casting, Ilya successfully obtained a fused steel billet. Next comes the crucial part of forging the sword. Ilya first positions the shaping die correctly, then uses a power hammer to form the steel billet into a U-shape. He then sandwiches high-carbon steel inside the U-shaped steel for 3-layer composite forging. This forging concept draws on the ancient Chinese techniques of 100 refined steel and steel cladding. A few years ago, to forge a Chinese Miao Dao, Ilya specially visited Chinese master craftsmen and learned this unique craft. It is precisely because of this experience that Ilya handled the task of cladding high-carbon steel with 100 refined steel, the process more difficult than Damascus steel forging, with remarkable smoothness. After the steel billet is perfectly fused, Ilya begins making the blade tip using hot cutting techniques. He takes out various dies he commonly uses, combines the dies with the machine, and works with manual labor to stretch and elongate the blade through continuous high-pressure shaping and forging. Although these are Ilya's personal tools, they work extremely well. After a series of operations, he not only lengthens the blade, but also creates the blade's curvature. Of course, this is only the initial shaping of the sword. The details still need to be polished and refined. Without the slightest hesitation, Ilya directly picked up the power hammer and got to work, repeatedly adjusting the blade edge and grooves of the steel billet to ensure the size perfectly matches the target. Once the blade was basically formed, Ilya handed the sword to Yorichi Tsujikuni beside him. To complete the entire sword, he still needed the help of this friend. After Yorichi Tsujikuni processed the blade with a grinder, the circular curved edge of the blade was also finished. Next came the important quenching stage. stage. To perfectly present the Nikarin sword, Ilya chose water quenching. Considering the need to strictly control time and temperature, Ilya operated it personally. As the red-hot blade slowly submerged into the water in the bucket splashed instantly. After completing the water quenching, Ilya put the sword into the tempering furnace. Immediately after, Ilya hurried to make the hilt accessories. He first made the tsuba guard with mild steel, then covered it with polished brass. To make the entire sword look more authentic, Ilya fixed the selected brass with a machine and began to carve carefully. Finally, he covered the outer layer of the hilt with green mother of pearl and decorated it with Japanese-style wrapping. On the other side, Yurichi Tsujikuni didn't stop either. To achieve the perfect effect from the anime, after taking the blade out of the tempering furnace, he took turns using grinding tools to process the blade details. After a round of polishing, the 100 refined steel patterns on the blade looked delicate and unique. After perfectly combining the hilt and the blade, Ilya also engraved characters on the blade, a special mark from Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba. This sword, which carries Ilya's passionate hero dream, looks extremely handsome. In the upcoming strength test, how will this sword perform? Let's wait and see.